who's the objectively best Genshin character? I'm gonna be starting this new series that is directly inspired by Red Beard Guy from TikTok, but with Genshin characters instead of Pokemon. So let's start with our beloved Outrider. When it comes to battle prowess, Amber is a non-variable when it comes to pyro DPSs, but most Amber mains I've seen run her with Golden Troop and let Bear and Bunny do the damage. 2 stars. Availability. Other than the Traveler, Amber is literally the first character you ever get, so that's 5 stars for availability. Next up, character. Amber is super energetic and full of life. She taught the Traveler how to glide. She helped the Traveler look for their sibling. Her lore is also pretty cool, but compared to characters that are coming up soon, I wouldn't give her more than 2.5 stars. Finally, design. For being one of the first people you ever meet, her design is without a doubt recognizable. The bunny ears really accentuate her playfulness. The flowing feathers connected to her vision reinforce her being an outrider. The goggles give her a semi-steampunky look, but again, compared to other characters coming up, I can't give her more than 2.5 stars. That gives our first ever character that isn't Traveler 3 stars overall. Do you think this rating is fair? Leave it in the comments below. How long do you think Kaeya will stay at number 1? We're rating all the Genshin characters and Kaeya is crazy. Just not in battle prowess though. When the game first launched, Cryo was the strongest element, but nowadays it's the weakest. Seedlolly just got released and she doesn't even buff Cryo. So yeah, the element is in a bad spot in the meta right now. But what about Kaeya? Early game, he's not that bad. He's a decent Cryo applicator, and I've seen people get good damage with him. 3 stars for battle prowess. As for availability, people in the last video were talking about the constellations and how Amber should be 4 stars because it's really hard to get her constellations. But for this series, availability is just getting the character, so he'll stay at 5 stars. Character is where it gets good because Kaeya has amazing lore. He's step-brothers with Diluc. He's the cavalry captain of a nation with no horses. And if you read the manga, you'll know how deep his lore goes. Not to mention, he's Conrian. But all of that just for them to barely use him. The last main quest he showed up in was Dainsleif and Sumeru, but he just showed up and left. Although since we're probably gonna be going back to Mondstadt anyway, this one might change, but because of how little he's used, I'll give him 4 stars. Finally, design. For a 1.0 4-star character, Kaeya has a really good design. You can tell he's lazy by his hair. By the way he presents himself, you'll know that he'll get the job done eventually. Overall, he just has a good design. 4 stars. That gives our cavalry captain 4 stars overall. How long do you think he'll keep this number 1 spot? Have you seen this electrifyingly beautiful librarian? We're rating on the Genshin characters, and Lisa is pretty good. There's 9 4-star electro characters, but as a first, Lisa isn't bad. But I can't give her too much credit. 2.5 stars. Just like the last 2 and just like the next character, Lisa has 5 stars in availability. It's gonna say 5 stars because I don't want to add their constellations as variables. Character-wise, Lisa's not the worst. Just like most Mondstadt characters, she hasn't been used in a while, but she was in the alchemical potion event, which was really fun. She's a really strong librarian who's also very lazy. I would give her a higher score if she was actually part of the Hexen Circle, but she's not. She's too lazy for that. But every time she talks to me, it just feels so much tingles. When we do eventually go back to Mondstadt, I hope they use her more. 3.5 stars. Lastly, design. What can I say except badum? I think I speak for the people here when I say that when I first saw Lisa, I was like that neuron activation monkey meme. She's so hot. But we have to be objective about this. Her color scheme is really good, as well as the rose motifs. Her hair brings home the fact that she's not really trying too hard. And when you look like that, who could blame her? It's simple, but it works. But looking at future characters, especially the Pontanians, I can't give her more than 3.5 stars. That gives her a total of 3.625 stars, a little above Amber, but below Kaeya. Let the show begin, because we're rating all the Genshin characters objectively. And this one is really hard to do objectively because Barbara has a very special place in my heart. For me and most other people, she's probably the first healer you'll ever get, and her healing isn't bad. When using her normal attack while her E is active, it does a whole team heal, and her ult is also a team heal. She carried me through early game, and watching other new players, Barbara also sustains most of other people's teams, and her C6 can even revive a character. 3.5 stars. For availability, Barbara is also free. 5 stars obviously, but character is where she falls short. Her role in the Mondstadt Archon quest wasn't too grand, but she was more helpful than Kaeya or Lisa were in the battle against Storm Terror, since she was the one that got us the Holy Lyre de Himmel. But since then, she's been in barely any events, which is a shame for the idol of Mondstadt. And other than being Jean's sister, her lore isn't very deep. 2 stars. But finally, design. Barbara's a mix of 3 things. She's obviously a deaconess. The white mix with the blue also shows how she's a healer, but at the same time, she's also an idol. The long flowing skirt, the cute little hat, the puffy sleeves, and with a bow on her chest to seal the deal, she mixes those 3 things very well. I wanted to give her 3 stars, but the fact that she's the only 4-star with a burst animation, I'm gonna bump it up to 3.5, which gives the idol of Mondstadt 3.5 stars overall. Do you like potatoes? Because he sure does. We're rating all the Genshin characters, and Razor's the first character that isn't free. But let's talk about his battle prowess first. Razor's surprisingly a lot of people's first main. At least he was for 2 of my friends. But out of the 3 4-star electro DPSs, Razor is probably weaker than both of them. 2 stars for battle prowess. Now let's get to availability. This is the system that I'm gonna be using for characters that aren't free. I'm gonna divide the amount of banners they're in with how many versions there's been since they released. And with Razor, that's 38 versions and 10 banners. With at least 2 banners per patch, that's 10 banners divided by a baseline of 76 banners. That puts Razor in 13% of the banners, which isn't terrible. He's been in a quarter of all the total patches. While it's hard to quantify this now and this might change in the future, for now I'll give Razor 4 stars for availability. As for character, Razor was present in Wolvendom and was pretty important there, but only there. In the grand scheme of Genshin, he doesn't really matter, but neither do a lot of other characters. I'll give him 2.5 stars for character. Lastly, design. You can tell he's a feral boy. He has a lot of scars. He looks like he stinks. this. His eye bags show that he probably lacks a lot of sleep. A pretty good portrayal of a boy raised by wolves. I think he's in the same vein as Amber for design. 2.5 stars. That gives Razor her lowest score so far, an overall score of 2.75 stars. Do you think this is fair, or did I do this wolf boy dirty? Get your plates ready because we're ranking all the Genshin characters. This time we're doing the queen of off-field Pyro, Xiangling. Before Mawika came out, she was really the only viable off-field Pyro, which is crazy because she's been out since 1.0. But even though she isn't one of a kind anymore, I'll still give her 5 stars for battle prowess, purely by how dominant she's been as a support. Next is availability, and Xiangling is also free. But she isn't just free from the abyss, she's also free during Lantern Night once a year. 5 stars. Unfortunately, character is where she falls short. Most 1.0 characters suffer from the same fate. With the exception of characters like Beidou, Ningguang, or Kaeya, a lot of them just aren't super relevant to the story. And even though Xiangling was one of the first characters that showed up before we even got to her nation, no matter how awesome she is, I have to give her 2 stars like Barbara. Finally, design. Xiangling's design is really cohesive. Her blue hair clashing with her outfit really makes her stand out. And all the bear motifs that relate to Guoba, it's a really good design. It's not super crazy, it's a little basic, but still good. 3.5 stars. That gives the queen of off-field Pyro a surprisingly high score of 3.875 stars. What can she cook up next? Get ready because the pirates are coming. We're reading all the Genshin characters and Beidou is awesome. The captain of the Crux is really strong in lore, but how strong is she in game? A good sub DPS. She's the only character with a parry so far. I think she is a little better than Razor, so let's give her 3 stars for battle prowess. As for availability, being a leeway 4 star, she's free once a year during Lantern Raid. Other than that, she's been in 14 banners, and with a total baseline of 76 banners, she's in almost 20% of banners, which I say is pretty good. 4.5 stars for availability. Now let's get into character, where Beidou also shines pretty bright. She's not quite on the level of Kaeya. She's strong enough to kill a Leviathan, but other than being strong and being pretty awesome, she's also the only reason why the Traveler got to Inazuma in the first place. Without the Alcor, it would have been hard to find another way, because of the Sokoku decree not allowing immigrants, and Beidou being one of the only exceptions to that rule. So while her lore isn't as deep as Kaeya, she's still really important in the story, at least at that point. So I'll give her 4 stars as well. Finally, with design, if she didn't have an eye patch, you really couldn't tell that she's a pirate, but nonetheless, she still has a really cool design. She's one of the only female characters without a split hair, and while she is a bit sexualized, she still looks badass as hell. But compared to newer characters, it is a little bland. It is still memorable enough to warrant 3.5 stars. That gives Captain Beidou 3.75 stars overall, beating Lisa by just a bit. Number 2 of the big 3 of 4 stars. We're rating all the Genshin characters, and in terms of battle prowess, Xingqiu is amazing. With there being 3 4-star Hydros, and all 3 of them having different roles, it's crazy that Xingqiu is the only one who is high tier. He has excellent off-field Hydro application, damage reduction, and a bunch of other things. As one of the big 3 4 stars, he deserves 5 stars in battle prowess. As for availability, Xingqiu's in over 20% of all banners, with that being 17. Not to mention, being a leeway 4 star, he's free once a year during Lantern Raid. 4.5 stars. For character, Xingqiu is an interesting fellow. Like most of the early 4 stars, he had his own part in the Archon quest, but his character was never really super remarkable. I'll give him the same score as Xiangling and Barbara at 2 stars. Now finally, design. Much like a lot of the early characters, he has a basic design, but it works. His clothes show his rank in society, and while it's not my favorite design, it still looks good. 3 stars. That gives Xingqiu an average of 3.625 stars overall, lower than Xiangling. Do you think Bennett will be higher? Move over, Scrooge McDuck, because we have the richest woman in all of Teyvat. We're reading all the Genshin characters. Until this day, Ningguang is the only Geo Catalyst. I guess they're too scared of making earthbenders. But honestly, she does better as a Thrilling Tale support for Navia than she is as her role as a DPS. In another world where she wasn't a 1.0 character, then she might have been a 5-star character. She does have decent utility with her curtain, but it's nothing crazy. 2.5 stars. As for availability, just like all the leeway 4 stars, she's free once a year during Lantern Raid. But other than that, she and Beidou have the same amount of banners at 14, so I'll give her 4.5 stars as well. As for character, Ningguang is one of the most important people from Liyue. Her sacrificing the Jade Chamber was crucial. She did so much for that battle, and she's also one of the most revered people in Liyue. But sadly, she doesn't show up very often, not in events or any side quests, just like Kaeya, so I'll give her 4 stars. As for design, it's obvious that Ningguang should have been a 5-star. The black, white, and gold color scheme, complemented by red accent, her design is incredible. Just by looking at her, you can tell how regal, powerful, and beautiful she is. I think Ningguang deserves nothing less than 5 stars for design. That gives Ningguang an overall score of 4 stars, tying her in first place with Kaeya. How long do you think it's gonna be until they're dethroned? Love, Chunibyo, or Fischl? We're reading all the Genshin characters, and pre-Dendro, Fischl was probably the best 4-star Electro character. Her off-field application is incredible. She's also an amazing battery. She started the trend with the 4-star Electro bow. Even though she isn't as dominant as she was before, she still deserves 4.5 stars for battle prowess. Next up, availability. Fischl's been in 13 banners, which is almost 20% of all banners. But since she isn't a leeway character, she's not free once a year. 3.5 stars. Next up, character. Fischl is one of the few 1.0 characters that this wasn't in the Archon quest. And for people like me who started playing in 2023, I didn't get to meet Fischl in game until Simulanka. But other than her appearances, her character is amazing. Her delusion is so funny. She has enough mastery over her vision that she made Oz, as unimportant as she may be in the story, story, her personality really shines. 3 stars. Finally, design. Her attire is so different compared to other Mondstadt characters, which is telling of how much of a Chunibyo she is. Even the eye patch that is storing her power, I think she has a great design, but it's not too crazy. 3.5 stars, which gives the Prinzessin Diverterlung an average score of 3.625 stars. Do you think she'd be happy with that score?